Here's another 6-foot tall wood privacy fence you can build. This one's going to have 1x6 tongue and groove material. And you can space the post out. I would imagine 8 foot would be maximum. You could get 8-foot material or 16-foot material for something like this. And the top cap is going to need to be a little longer to go over the edge. Now here I left the tongue sticking up. You're going to see here in a little bit where I cut this off. I just left this up. If that's the look you want, fine. You might want to just cut the tongue off and have this angled piece butt up against the top. That would work. Or you might want to cut it flat to where it's square and you don't have this little angle here. Now, one thing I need to point out, and this is very important, the tongue needs to go up. Otherwise, it could end up trapping water. You can see here if the tongue is down and the groove is up, you can see here where any water could kind of roll off and get trapped in the groove. So as long as it's up and the groove is down, the water's kind of going to roll down onto the tongue and off. So just make sure that you don't do this. This is probably the most important part of this. Water gets trapped in here. Each one of these, the water absorbs into the wood. You could end up with the wood decomposing faster, or you could end up with it warping, buckling, and twisting as one part of the wood is moist and the other part is dry. Now here's an example of how the trim can cover the groove to save you from cutting these top boards. And of course the top cap here, we have a 4x4 and a 2x6. So you can see here I moved it all the way over, but you have plenty of room here. You can move it back. You can move it back another quarter if you wanted it to be a little, if you wanted to have it hanging over the 4x4 a little bit. So the top cap 2x6 for this particular fence, 4x4 post. You can trim it out. Here I have it trimmed out with a 1x2, something that might be 1 3/4 inches, for example. Just rip a 1x4 in half, and here's a 1x4. This can always be smaller too. And of course the top cap is mitered over the post here so we can get good nailing. And this is what the back of this particular fence would look like. Now, if you want the fence to look a little nicer, in my opinion, and look the same on each side, you can simply cut the pickets or the fence boards and have them go in between each fence post, and then simply run some trim in here. In here you can see where we're using a 2x4 cap instead of a 2x6. 2x4 will work just fine. You can see the horizontal pickets right here, and then the trim on each side, 4x4 post. And on this side, I went ahead and mitered the top of the trim boards on each side. And here I just had the square cuts. Each one will work. Now here I put a piece of trim on the bottom. I'm going to leave that up to you. For whatever reason, I've taken these boards off before and they're always rotted down here. And that could just be because people are watering their fences or whatever the deal is. But if you don't need to kind of picture frame it, build something that looks like a picture frame around it, just leave this board off. Does it look, that much worse here? Are you going to have some plants here? It's not going to be noticeable. Probably not. Now, if you do, wouldn't be a bad idea to put some notches in it. And of course, if you do notch this, you are notching it to allow for the airflow to dry, keep these materials a little drier. You could always run some caulking on the top of it if you were going to paint the fence. That would be fine. And again, is it going to be that big of a deal? No, you could just put this board on without these grooves in it. And if it rots it a little bit, and that's your biggest problem, you could always just end up replacing the bottom board later, or covering it with a larger piece of trim. And of course here we can see how the trim is butting up against the post, and the mitered top cap. Again, the overlapping. This can be any angle, 20 degrees, 40 degrees, 45 degrees. Leave that up to you. Another view of it here. And let's go ahead and take the fencing or the horizontal pickets out. And you're going to start by installing the trim piece on one side. Once this is firmly attached to the fence posts, you can install your pickets and then install the trim around it. So not that difficult. And something like this, I have this at 5 foot apart here in the posts. 6 foot might be pushing it for something like this. But could you go 8 foot? You probably can, because the tongue and groove are going to interlock together and create more of a solid panel. If these were just individual boards, you could push on one of the boards in one direction and the other one wouldn't move. And if that was the case, you probably only want to go about 5 feet. But with the tongue and groove, I think you're going to be safe. You could kind of span this out to 8 foot. I think you'd be safe with that. But again, I will leave that up to you to whether or not you span them 12 feet or 50 feet. So anyway, that is it for the video. Another fence design idea for those of you who do not want your neighbors looking through your fence.